So let's go to getbootstrap.com. We are using 5.1, which is default. Here if we search for Modal, it is here. Now let's check launch demo model. If we click on it, it opens this model. So let's try this out. Okay, so we'll click on it. Now whatever we have on this, we'll use this thing. So it has two part. It should have two part. First is this model, the content of this. Then second part is this background, if you say this overlay. So these two things. All right, so first thing, let's copy this model, and this is going to be used at other places as well. So what we will do, we will simply have it as a reusable component. Okay, and because on this model we are going to have this close button, these buttons, so this is going to be an interactive component. That means it should go to the client project. All right, let's do this. So we'll go to our client project. In client project we have shared components. In the shared components, I'm going to create one new razor component. Let's say modal.razor. All right, and in here I am going to paste whatever I copied, the default model stuff. Okay, do we have ID somewhere? Yes, we have ID. So we should not have this because we might have multiple modal pop-ups. Okay, so we should remove this ID. We are not using this ID. Tab index, that is fine. Area labeled by, let's remove it. And this ID as well, let's remove it. We are not using these IDs. Database dismiss, this is the default bootstrap CSS and JavaScript. These works with combination with to remove this model, but we are going to use our own logic to close and open the model. So we are going to remove this database model, this thing, and from here as well. All right, okay, let's save everything. Now this model title, this is going to be a dynamic part. So the component or page component which is going to use this model component, it's their responsibility to provide this model title. So we'll have a parameter here. Let's say public string title. All right, and this is going to be a parameter on this, and we will add editor required because this is required for this component to look good. And then we'll add this @title here so that it gets rendered here. Now after this, this part, this body, this is going to be dynamic. Whoever is calling it, they will provide their own body for this. So then this is going to be HTML content. So for that, this is going to be in Blazor's language, it is going to be a render fragment. All right, so let's add one more parameter property here. This is going to be render fragment, and the default will use child content. This is the default render fragment name, and here also we are going to use parameter, and this also is required because without, so we'll add editor required. So without child content, there is no point of this model. There is going to be nothing in this, so that's not the thing we want. So inside this model body, we'll add child content. All right, so save everything, and now we should be good. After this, we have one more case. These buttons and action on these buttons, these might also be different for different use cases and different places. Okay, so this thing should also be dynamic. Now there could be two cases. One, we know we need these two buttons, but sometimes we might have some different use case or different buttons or something like that. So for that, what we are going to do, we are going to get this also from the consumer of this component. So the way we are getting child content, the same way we are going to get these buttons. All right. So here what we'll do, we will get one more render fragment, and this will say footer content. So footer content get and set, and here we'll say this is also going to be a parameter. Now we are good, but there might be some cases where we don't need these this footer content. We don't need this separate thing. So that's why we can make it nullable. So now this footer content is nullable. We might provide it if we want. If we don't want, then we'll simply skip it. All right. So now we'll see if we have provided this footer content. So this footer content is not null. Then we'll render this footer content. If this is null, then we'll have these buttons. Now with these buttons, we can remove this save change button, or we can remove one of these buttons, because in that case we don't know what action we need to perform. So we'll simply have one button, default button. We'll say okay. Okay, and let's have the buttons as btn, maybe secondary on this. Secondary, yeah. All right. Now inside this footer content, if we have multiple buttons, we might have a use case where we don't need this footer at all. For example, if we are having some form inside that pop-up, then all that is going to be part of child content, because this is going to have that edit form, and then buttons are going to have input type submit or button type submit. So submit button should be inside edit form. So now these two are at different levels, so this is not going to work. So let's do this. Let's have one more property here of type boolean. We'll say show footer, and this is going to be a parameter. Okay. Then if this show footer is true, then only we are going to render this modal footer thing. If that's not the case, we'll simply skip it, and it will just have this child content. We can have buttons and all that stuff in child content only. Okay, now this looks fine. And for this show footer, we'll have default value as true. So it should show the default footer. All right, so looks like we are good now. The only thing is, when we click on this OK or this close button, it should close this modal, but display of this modal, it is being handled by its parent, its consumer. So what do we need to do? Whenever we are clicking on these buttons, we need to notify the parent that we have clicked on this close button, so you need to remove this modal component from this HTML template. So for that, we are going to have an event here. So here we'll say public event handler, let's say on close, and this is also going to be a parameter and editor required. We need this, because if we don't have this, then this modal component is going to be on this page forever. We need to remove it. All right, now we need to call this when we are clicking on this OK button. So here we'll say on click, call this on close. What happened? Event handler, oh sorry, my bad. This should be event callback. All right. Okay, and same thing we'll do on this headers close button. Here also we'll say @ on click equals on close. And now we are good to use this, but there is one piece missing, which is that backdrop, that overlay. So if we click on it, you see this faded background. So this is a separate HTML. We'll simply use this. So if we check this, let's open it again, and this is where it is. Modal fade. This should be at the very end somewhere. This thing, this modal backdrop. I don't know if you can see it. Let me zoom it. So this, let's zoom it more. This is div class modal backdrop fade show. This is the HTML for this background. So we will simply edit as HTML and we'll copy it. Div class modal backdrop fade and show. We'll have this in our modal component. After everything, we can have it here. So now we'll save it and we are good to use this modal component. All right. Now let's go to this after login action. And here, when we have generated this link, after that we need to show, or maybe after the is processing is false and state has changed, after this we'll show that, or maybe before this we'll show that that modal in which we are going to have this short URL. Okay, so for now let's quickly check it. What we can do, we can have private state here. So private, let's say bool, we'll say show link generated modal with a default value of false, and we need to have private string, nullable string at short URL, because this is the thing we need to show. Okay, now in this HTML we can simply say if the show link generated modal is true, then we'll simply going to show our modal. Now we'll see it is showing us this warning. This is saying title is required, child content is required, and on close is required. So let's have all these things. So we'll have some title. We'll say short URL generated. Okay, then we need child content and on close. So first have this on close. So on close, what we need to do, we need to set it false and set it short URL as null. Or what we can do, maybe we can remove this thing, this flag at all, and we can simply use this short URL, and here we can check if this is not string is null or white space. That means we have some value in this short URL, then we need to show this. So on close, we can simply say just set this short URL to null. Alright, now it is saying child content is also required. So here we can simply provide a child content. For now we can say, let's have a P. We'll say generated short URL, and here we can simply show this. We'll change this UI, but for now we just want to see if this model is getting rendered and we are seeing this short URL here. And after this is processing false, here we'll say short URL equals link dot short URL, and then state has changed, so it should re-render. Save it and let's try to run it. Okay, it is here. Let's try this URL only. Save it, shorten, login. Loader, and we need to have something which we are not having right now. we can see backdrop. That means things are working. But on this modal fade, we need to have one more class, that is show, right? Okay, maybe we are missing something. Let's quickly check what are we missing from this bootstrap. So this is default, and when we click on this launch demo modal, then if we check on this modal, it has modal fade show, and with this it has this display block, right? This style. So we are missing this, so we need to add show and this display block, this style. And area model true, role dialog. Maybe let's do this. Let's copy this div, the opening tag. So this is the final div which should be when we are displaying that modal. So let's go to our code. Let's stop it for now. Let's go to modal.razor and we'll simply have this here. The modal fade show, we'll remove ID. We are not using it. Tab index area labeled by, we have removed ID, so let's remove this as well. Area model true, role dialog, and we should be good now. Save everything and let's try it out again. It's here. Short URL generate pwd @123 login, and boom, we can see this now, right? We have not provided any footer, that's why this default button is coming. All right, so that means this thing is working. We just need to we'll change the appearance. So on this modal title, we'll change this to our main background color. And now let's try, if we press on OK, then it got removed. So that means modal is working, our short URL generation is working. Now there is one specific case, not one, but this is also the case. If I copy this URL, paste it here now I am already logged in. Now if I try to generate a short URL, we saw that loader got removed from here, and after that nothing. But we know that short URL generated because that loader came and went. So we need to have that modal here as well. Okay, so let's do these two things. First, on this modal header, we'll say bg main and text white. Save it, and then we are displaying this modal on that after login action right here. But we need to have the same thing on home page, or maybe in the short URL generator form as well here, because if we are already logged in, then this piece is not going to be executed. And here also we are getting user ID, generating DTO, and then sending this call to generate the link. So we have that thing here as well. So let's quickly do that. I copied that HTML. Let's add it here, and then let's use this underscore short URL. So we'll have it private string nullable string underscore short URL, and then we can have the short URL here. So underscore short URL equals link dot short URL. Save it, and we are good now. Now one thing, we'll quickly see that, but before that we need to repeat this thing. We need to duplicate this thing, right? And we are going to change this inside this thing. Here we are going to have some different text with this short URL, and we are going to have copy to clipboard button as well. So there are going to be multiple things. So instead of duplicating all this, it's a good candidate to be created as a separate reusable component, because we are going to reuse this. All right, this inner part as well. So we'll do that, but before that let's check if this modal is also coming from this home page when we are logged in. So let me stop it and rerun it. Okay, so it's here. Now we are not logged in. Let's try it out. Login. Let's add the username, password, login. We are on this page and loader, and we have this nice. So this header is good. We have this short URL generated. We'll say okay. Now we'll try to generate from here. Now we are already logged in. So shorten URL. We saw that loader and then this modal pop-up. So that means this thing is working. Now we can simply design this stuff and add a copy to clipboard button here. Alright, that we'll do next.